Blessings, everybody. This is Dale. Thank you so much for joining with me today on the Word podcast. We're continuing through our examination of the book of Hebrews. We're in the 11th chapter, the great gallery of faith. But we're doing a little chasing of some things right here. Remember what it said in the 4th verse there? It said that by faith, Abel offered to God a better sacrifice than Cain, through which he obtained the testimony that he was righteous, God testifying about his gifts, and through faith, though he is dead, he still speaks. So there was something that occurred with Abel, okay, something that occurred with Cain in the scripture that shows us a thing about faith. Well, we've gone back to Genesis 4, and we're chasing through that. So let me read the first 4 verses of Genesis 4. We've already covered this, and then we'll pick it up. Now, the man had relations with his wife, Eve, and she conceived and gave birth to Cain. And she said, I have gotten a man-child with the help of the Lord. Again, she gave birth to his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of flocks, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. So it came about in the course of time that Cain brought an offering to the Lord of the fruit of the ground. Abel, on his part, also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of their fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Abel and for his offering. So the Lord had a regard, however that may have been, and we chased that around a little bit in the previous episode, what that might have been and how the Lord did it, okay? He might have called down fire from heaven. We don't know. We just know that it was obvious and they knew it. So he had regard for Abel and for his offering, but, verse 5, but for Cain and for his offering he had no regard. So notice it's for the Lord had regard for Abel and for his offering. There's a distinction for the individual and for his offering. But for Cain and his offering, he had no regard. So it wasn't just the offering. The bringing of the right offering, the proper heart was reflective upon the individual. Abel did what was right. He brought the right offering, and God had regard for that offering and for him. Cain brought the wrong offering, and God did not have regard for the offering or for Cain. Well, verse 5, the last part of verse 5, we see Cain's response. So Cain became very angry, and his countenance fell. Okay? The Hebrew word right here for angry means that he was furious, that he was hot, he was kindled, he was lit, he was on fire. It's a word that's used throughout the Old Testament. I'm just sort of flipping through it right now to sort of see. It means to be really angry. I love this, to become vexed. Okay? He was put out. Cain was very angry. Well, who would he have been angry with? Was he angry with Abel? Was he angry with God? I highly suspect he was angry with both. God did not regard his offering, but he regarded Abel. So he's angry at God. He's angry at his brother Abel. Well, the Lord knows this. Look at verse 6. Then the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry, and why has your countenance fallen? Well, what is this countenance? Countenance is exactly the way we use the word today. It was his face. His face fell. He didn't have a poker face. You could tell by the look on his face that he was irritated, he was furious. And the Lord's saying, hey, why are you angry? Why are you so vexed? And why has your countenance fallen? Now, isn't that an interesting question? Now, God knows the answer. He's not asking Cain for informational purposes. God asks questions like this for the purpose of the one receiving the question to consider the question. Okay? So, Cain, why is it? Think this through. Why are you angry? Think this through. Why is your countenance falling? So is there something here that Cain is supposed to know that we don't know? Well, we get a hint here in verse 7. God continues to speak. If you do well, will not your countenance be lifted up? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door, and its desire is for you, but you must master it. And so God is looking at him. He says, Cain, why are you acting this way? Why is your countenance falling? You know what to do. If you do well, your countenance will be lifted up. So what is this doing well? Well, it probably goes back to the offering. He simply needs to bring the offering that apparently the Lord had communicated with them that they were supposed to bring. He simply needed to worship the way that he was supposed to worship. You know, when we get done with this account here in Genesis, I'll probably chase a couple of other passages related to Cain that you see in the New Testament. And when you do that, you find out that what Cain's sin was is that he sought to come before the Lord and to worship the Lord the way that he wanted to. The error of Cain. He did not want to worship God in the way that God said to worship him. I tell you what, folks, the church is full of such people today that want to worship the Lord in the way they want to worship the Lord, but not to worship him in the way they're supposed to. So God tells him, if you'll do what I tell you to do, if you do what is right, then your countenance will be lifted up. But if you do not do well, then sin, sin is crouching at the door. Sort of an anthropomorphic type of thing right here, given a physical characteristic of something right here. Sin, it just means that rebellion is sitting there. There is also the thing that there was probably another divine creature right here that was orchestrating this sin, that was doing this type of thing, that was crouching at the door of Cain. Okay, we'll put it that way. He says, if you don't do well, sin is crouching at the door. It's ready to pounce, folks. And its desire is for you. The it is sin. Sin's desire is for you. But you must master it. So God's letting you know you're able to master this. If you will do well, your countenance will be lifted up. If you do not do well, then sin's crouching at the door of you, and its desire is for you. And what goes unsaid here is it's going to get you. It will get you. The Lord communicates this directly to Cain. So let me go back and read these verses again. Verses 6 and 7. Then the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry? And why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will not your countenance be lifted up? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door, and its desire is for you, but you must master it. Then the Lord quit speaking. Now, one more verse for today. Verse 8. Cain told Abel, his brother. Okay, Cain tells Abel, his brother, what? Well, the immediate context that God had spoken to him, that the Lord had spoken to him. He tells his brother what the Lord had said. Everybody knew Cain was upset. Everybody knew Cain was mad about this. He tells Abel, his brother. Then he says this, verse 7, and it came about when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel, his brother, and killed him. He goes and tells his brother. Now, let me go read a couple of things here, because I've always had something in the back of my mind. King James says in this, and Cain talked with Abel, his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against him and killed him. The ESV, Cain spoke to Abel, his brother, and when they were in the field, then Cain said to his brother Abel, let's go out in the field. And when they were in the field, Cain rose up. Well, that's interesting, because it's like Cain led his brother out in the field. You know, I've had the idea about this, and I think this is probably the general idea, is that Cain told Abel, his brother, about this encounter while they were in the field or on the way to the field. And when they get out to the field, Cain kills him. How does he kill him? We don't know. But you will see later on in the passage that his blood was spilled. Abel's blood was spilled on the ground. Probably took a rock after him or something like that. Maybe even a spear or something. But he killed his brother. Why did he kill his brother? Because sin's desire was for Cain. And Cain did not do well. And sin was crashing at the door, and he did not do what was right. And because of that, he did not master sin. Sin led him to do what he did. He chose the way of sin rather than the way of God. May we not walk in the way of Cain. Again, I'm Dale. I'll see y'all next episode. Goodbye.